Nancy Drew and the Secret of the Tides Book 1. Chapter 1 Heartbreak. How could you do this to me? Nancy asked while pacing around her dimly lit bedroom clinging to a rose gold-tinted iPhone. Oh, come on sweetheart, it is not that bad. I will only be away for 2 weeks tops. Carson Drew tried to explain. He heroically clung to the cell phone while hurrying to catch a cab across a busy New York road. My client needs me right now. Mr. Williams is on trial for a murder he didn't commit, and it is going to take all I've got to fix this. He tried to explain before Nancy hung up the line in frustration. The 18-year-old teen growled before plopping down onto the soft queen-size bed. The bed squeaked as the mattress settled under her thin frame. With a flick of the girl's wrist, the treasured iPhone was tossed to a small white nightstand. Nancy had felt so lonely here lately ever since her college classes let out for the summer. There was not much left to do here in River Heights. Her right hand held the plane tickets as she stared at them longingly. Though the girl knew better, she still felt so betrayed by her old man. Now, what was she going to do for fun? The two had planned out this trip months in advance. Sighing, the teen rolled over and covered up her head. What's the point? Why even try? Just then a text came through. It was from George. The teen had sent a picture of herself body surfing with her new boyfriend, Frank, a hot Hawaiian surfer. The girls had met on a past adventure. Nancy quickly sent her a flirty winky face. She had to admit those two were cute together. Nancy felt a pang of jealousy to see the two lovebirds together. It somehow reopened the wound in her own heart that had not completely healed up yet. Ned Nickerson, her boyfriend of 2 years, had just broken up with her a month ago. He had just graduated college and had to move to another state to start work as a weather forecaster. In the end, the boy wanted Nancy to come along and popped the question. On a romantic night out on the town, just after leaving their local chills, Ned pulled his beat-up dark green Mustang off the road, asking Nancy to sit on the hood of the car to watch the stars together. It was a clear night with all the constellations visible. Nancy had just pointed out the Big Dipper when he gently took her hand and caressed it lovingly. Nancy, the boy whispered, tightening his grip slightly. Wow, look at that. Is that Leo? She questioned, with her mind lost in the shimmering night sky. Nancy, he said again, almost pleading. The girl quickly turned to look at Ned to find him down on one knee. Shocked, Nancy just sat there as if in another world. Nancy, will you be my wife? He asked as his boyish features lit up like $1 million smile. Ned. I. Stammered the girl, trying to think. With a big gulp, she tried again. I just don't think it will work out. Ned's jaw dropped in disbelief. The boy was sure Nancy would gush with emotion and instantly say yes. He was in shock. The boy's mouth went dry, and was unable to speak. Nancy could not bring herself to look him in the eye. You cannot be serious, we are far too young. I am nowhere near ready to settle down yet, let alone start a family. The teen sighed and closed her eyes. She spoke carefully, trying to not let her emotions cloud her judgment. You have to realize I have a life apart from you and many dreams. After that, Ned hung his head down low and could not look Nancy directly in the eyes. He drove her home that night without saying a word. He was heartbroken. The next morning Nancy received a text. It's over, babe. I'm on to my new life in North Carolina. Things will not be same without you, but we both need to move on. Back in reality, the Titan-haired girl swiped through the photos of Ned on the iPhone, still finding it hard to move on. Soon she became bored and switched to the news to see if anything interesting had happened. There was a story about how rescue dogs are in such high demand. She managed to watch some of it before slowly falling fast asleep, lost in a wave of darkness. Chapter 2 Drama. Nancy awoke due to the bright sunlight flooding into her large bedroom. Touring over a few times did nothing to help the girl rest. As her mind began to wake, the room slowly came into focus. Books, clothing, and stuffed animals littered her room from corner to corner. The girl had no idea why the men in her life insisted on giving her stuffed animals every holiday, but she had to admit it was kind of sweet. Well, up to the point when the bedroom floor became one large trip hazard with them scat all over like land bombs. Just one wrong step and you were going down hard onto the dark hardwood floor. "Oh dear Lord, what am I going to do about all this mess?" said the girl, stressing out. Swinging her long legs over the side of the bed, she expertly dodged the worst of the mess before heading across the room to hunt down the phone charger. "Where did I leave it?" asked the teen as she pulled out all the drawers from the antique French Provençal desk she kept near the tall double windows. "Nothing," growled the girl. While her running fingers through her long straight Titan hair, something caught Nancy's attention from across the room. The very end of the charger could be seen coming out from under her bed. Her small dog Toto had apparently hidden it earlier. "Another one of his little games. He is a very impish boy for sure," chuckled the teen. "Must take after me." With the phone plugged in, she turned on some Taylor Swift music and started cleaning up before the housekeeper, Hannah, could see it. "Yeah, it is kind of weird to be hiding a mess from the help. Keep in mind Hannah was more part of the family than anything else and is treated like it." The plump, curly-haired, motherly figure had first come into the Drew family's lives shortly after Nancy's mother had died of cancer. Nancy was only 7 when this happened. With Carson working most of the time at the office, the child quickly bonded with the housekeeper, thus the women became like family. Due to Mr. Drew's request, she cleaned everything in the home except the bedrooms, giving the family some privacy. "When did I last wear this?" she asked, picking up a pair of cream-colored shorts from under some papers that were scattered here and there. Just then the cell phone rang. Like a wild cat, she rushed to it. "Hello, this is Nance," she said, pretending to be laid back and chill. "Hey, girl. Guess what?" replied Bess Marvin, Nancy's best friend. The two had known each other since kindergarten and were as thick as thieves. "You found a new hot guy up there while visiting family?" Nancy said in a flat tone, smirking. "Oh come on Nancy, boys is not all I think about, try again." Bess teased, clearly enjoying this. "Oh come on Bess, I have no idea," pleaded the red-haired teen. "Remember when I entered that Instagram contest last month? Yeah, you had to take pictures of your bare feet for some kind of product contest, right? Bingo, that is it. Well, guess what girl, I won tickets for a free vacation to Charleston, South Carolina." Bess squealed as she shifted her weight from foot to foot. The teen was currently behind her aunt's barn, hiding to keep from doing any farm work. "This is just what we need to get out and have some fun and cut loose for a change." "Wow, Bess, that sounds amazing. When do we leave?" "I can be ready in 5 minutes, questioned Nancy. Her mind had already begun to plan what to pack. "We leave this weekend on Flight 101. Keep in mind that I will be back this Thursday so we can pack together. We need to make sure to go buy some new swimsuits before the trip. I kind of gained a few pounds from all this country cooking." Bess chuckled a little. "We will be gone a whole week and it is gonna be a blast," she shouted across the grassy farmland. "But what am I gonna do with these tickets Dad gave me? I do not want him to think I am ungrateful." "Oh come on girl, you worry too much. Just talk to him and give them to Hannah. You never know, she might enjoy going to a mystery dinner show with some man friend." Wink. Wink. Bess teased as she stood there playing with her wavy blonde hair. That was when a hand grabbed her shoulder. She almost jumped right out of her skin but turned to see hired ranch hand, Rick Mortar. "Oh, there you are little missy, your Aunt Sue wants you in the kitchen to help pluck the chickens for dinner." The man was a bit slow but a hard worker. He has been working on this same farm for over 15 years. What is going on, Bess? You okay? Nancy said while straining to hear what was going on. It is okay, they just found me, that means back to the grind. Nancy, please come save me from all this, replied the blonde with a loud sigh before disconnecting. Ha! Seems they are working Bess hard for a change. Nancy chuckled. It was hard to picture someone like Bess, with her perfectly manicured French tips and inch-long fake eyelashes, doing any work. She was very girly and was pretty much the daddy's little princess's type. Nancy sat down for a minute to clear her foggy mind. The teen's anxiety was trying to overwhelm her once again. The girl sat there, closed her eyes, and tried to breathe deeply. After a moment, a notification came up on Nancy's cell reminding her to help out with the animal shelter's adoption advent today. Sighing, she grabbed her teal crossbody bag and headed out, saying, "Life waits for no one." Chapter 3 Besties. Nancy. Why oh, Bess yelled from across the room while flailing her arms back and forth. She was still in the departing line with all the other passengers staring frustratingly in her direction. She was confident as ever, showing her honey blonde, bouncing up and down, showing off her newly cut bob hairstyle. Bess wore a loose-fitting gray tank with white Daisy Dukes and gold-tone gladiator sandals to show off her shapely legs. Nancy waved back to her friend, shyly unwilling to make a scene. She watched as the man behind Bess grabbed the girl's shoulder. "Shut up, trash," he ordered while getting up in her face. She backed down slowly, unsure what to do. Just then another guy a few places behind jumped into it. "Just leave that girl alone, she started nothing," commented the younger biker guy. He stood a whole head taller than the troublemaker and was very brawny, which seemed to make the other guy shudder slightly. "Oh yeah, and who is gonna make me?" said the first man as he broke out of line and grabbed the biker by the collar. In the blink of an eye, a brawl had started. Bess escaped by ducking under the railing while dodging other passengers all around. To be a thick girl, Bess really could move fast when she had to, a side effect for sure learned from all the years helping Nancy on cases. More than once the girls had to run literally for their lives. Nancy ducked out of the way and hid behind a large support column. Once Bess races by, Nancy went into action and jerked her friend to the side. The girls made a mad dash toward the ladies' room with Nancy leading the way. Thankfully the private family restroom was available. The large door to the bathroom had a long metal sliding lock which the girls wasted no time using. "We cannot spend all day in here, surely they must have guards somewhere to break it up," Bess commented while standing in front of the moderate bathroom mirror, digging through her small over-the-shoulder purse in search of some touch-up beauty items. "Shoo!" Nancy urged with her ear pressed against the cold metal door, straining to hear even a hint of information. The blonde worked to tame her bob, which had gotten all messed up in the mob. Next came some bright classic red lipstick for some vintage charm. Ever the snoop. "You just help yourself. Girl, you got a problem," she prodded, trying to get a response to ease the pending boredom. "Yeah right, it is not like they a version of the AA for this," Nancy added before turning back to the door. "Sounds like it's starting to calm down now. Let's give it a few more minutes," Nancy explained before leaning up against a wall for support. "Another long day. Check it out, girl, Wally texted me back," Bess exclaimed excitedly with a sly look on her young mug. "Not another one, Bess. Let me guess, you meet him on your last trip?" Nancy said dryly as she rolled her blue eyes. Bess was boy crazy and obsessed over a new guy every week. Wally was just the latest trend. Bess pouted a little and her best friend gave in. "Oh well, okay, tell me about him," she said with a straight face. "Is he hot? What type of guy is he? Is he hot?" "Oh come on, a girl, that is like asking if Star Wars is a thing," said the teen with an air of aloofness. Nancy stood there and pretended not to pay Bess any mind. The teen turned her back to Bess, before pulling out her iPhone. Bess gave her a surprised look before saying, "All right, I will pay it your way. I have to tell somebody about him. He is a bull rider from Texas that was working out there near my aunt's place. Nancy, you should have seen him. I have never seen such beautiful sea green eyes in my life." After about 10 more minutes of this mindless chatter, Nancy couldn't take no more and slowly opened the door to look out. All seemed clear, so the pair casually walked out. Ever eager to attract male attention, she made sure to throw in a few cute hair flips as well before leaving the building. Chapter 4 Vintage Charm. Bess, are you crazy? Why in the world do you need 7 large suitcases for a 2-week trip? Nancy fumed when they went to the luggage station. I must be fashionable at all times. I am a lady after all, replied the blonde, giving Nancy a cute hair flip. Nancy stopped short and stood there with her hands on her hips, refusing to take another step further. How do you expect us to get all this out to the car? I'm not a workhorse, said the girl with a stern look on her poker face, trying to stare her friend down. Bess returned the look with a calm demeanor. I never thought you were. Just watch closely, said the teen with a cunning grin stretched across her small heart-shaped face. Bess went over and picked up 3 large suitcases and started to try to carry them out. After a few feet, she looked around to see if anyone watching took her wallet from her purse and then tossed the bag to the shiny white tile floor. Making a show, Bess said in her best Marilyn Monroe voice, "Oh, my. What have I done?" She made a show of it, looking weak but glamorous as she rushed over to pick up her things. "Miss, is this yours?" answered a husky middle-aged man in a business suit that hurried over. In his hand, he held a bottle of Channel No. 5. "Oh, my, it is. Pardon little on me, so sorry to trouble you," Bess managed to say, acting quite coy. Nancy watched not far away with an eyebrow raised. "Oh, for you no trouble at all, miss," said the man. From where Nancy stood she could see he looked quite nervous around bees. "Audrey. But you can call me Candy, all my closest friends do, sugar," Bess replied, straightening herself up and smoothing down her clothing wrinkles. "Another hook, line and sinker," Nancy commented to herself, watching her friend act. Nancy stood there with a watchful eye, making sure Bess stayed safe. "Can I help, miss? This much to take to your car," he offered. Bess smiled wide. "Oh, would you? That is so gentlemanlike." The man nodded in response but frowned once she showed him all the luggage. Once the 2 girls were seated in Nancy's little powder blue Beetle convertible, Nancy turned to Bess and with a serious look said, "You can't keep doing that. One day one of those men could be dangerous and attack you." "Oh, come on, Nancy. Everyone knows I'm a good judge of the character. For example, just look at whom my besties are. Bess, this is a dangerous world even in little old River Heights. Girls have to be careful and watch their backs everywhere. You just don't have any idea what goes on in this modern world now. Let's just get a move on, we have a lot to get one before the trip," Bess said, refusing to make eye contact and happy to change the subject. Chapter 5 Chance Meeting. The duo listened to the radio while cruising through town. After a few songs, the Chainsmokers came on and the girl danced in their seats to the beat. Bess smiled and bit her tongue, trying not to laugh at Nancy. The redhead was trying her best to sing along in a masculine tone. Once halfway through she pointed to Bess to join in. Their duet was a real sight. Nancy had to pull off the side of the road just to calm down for a second. Once there they went straight up to Starbucks to get some double shots before shopping. "Wow, what a jolt. I can't believe how great this tastes," Bess exclaimed. "It's because we haven't had these since school let out. Trust me, I'm the same way about Dr. Pepper." They were sitting there enjoying the view as young men walked by. They enjoyed rating them and trying to guess their horoscope signs based on looks and swagger. "See him?" Nancy nodded in a certain young man's direction. Oh please, you could do much better. But I'll give him a 6. He's tall but has that stressed out look to him. Trust me, not worth our time. Bess commented quietly so no one could hear. She pointed to a dark-haired guy shopping for a urban bro. He is cute, I'll give him that. I get the feeling there's not much brain in there. Nancy sat back and looked around the room. How about him? She asked, gesturing to a guy working in Macy's. He doesn't have much style, that is for sure. Oh come on Bess, they all can't be babes. That doesn't mean they are not a catch. He's kinda cute. In a way, I guess. Teddy bears are your thing, girl. I prefer tall and muscular types. Bess replied in between sips of the hot coffee. Teddy bear guys, tend to have muscles. They just have a little more meat on their bones that evens it out. Okay, then go talk to him, Nance. If he's that cute. Bess said with a playful flair, wigging her dainty eyebrows. Nancy did a spit take. Don't be silly. I could never do that. Oh come on girl. I am sick of seeing you depressed and lonely. You need some kissing from time to time. Are you grown women, right? Bess urged her friend, gently nudging her in the right direction. Maybe you are right. There is no rule that says men have to do all the asking out, right? The teen asked, looking for support. Bess looked her right in the eye and said, You seriously don't need to be asking that question. She turned in her seat and huffed. Before digging out some nude lip gloss. Here girl, for some drama to add to your look. Now go get him. She ordered before pushing Nancy off towards the store. Nancy walked right up to the store, but once she got up the door, the teen freaked out and turned to run. Bess was standing right behind Nancy and caught the flighty teen. Get over there. You will never know unless you ask. Then with one last hard shove, Nancy went inside. The girl swallowed hard and watched her feet while slowly walking up to him. The guy was about 5'8", with a large build, and cute shaggy chocolate brown hair. He noticed Nancy staring and smiled slightly. Can I help you with something? Oh. There is this thing up here, can you get it down? She asked, gesturing towards a candle on a top shelf. With ease, he grabbed the candle and held it out for her. Anything for you, he added while blushing slightly. Nancy looked away anywhere but his large brown puppy dog eyes. Well. If that's the case, said the girl, twirling red hair around her small fingers. Want to go out to a movie later? He stood there open mouthed with eyebrows raised in shock. Nancy playfully nudged him on the arm but no response. The bit her lip in frustration. I really want to go see that new shark movie and maybe the Thor sequel. It's up to you. The world seemed to stand still for her at this moment. Nancy dug into her bag. Then held out a piece of paper with her number on it to the guy. His mouth closed as he took it before looking at her bewildered. Just think about it, okay? She added with a wink before darting back out to find Bess. Oh my God, girl. You hit it out of the park and with style, Bess exclaimed as she confronted Nancy. The two ran off giggling with Nancy's face completely red. So what's Mr. Hunky's name? Nancy deadpanned. She had forgotten to even ask or look at his name tag. Just my luck, she whimpered while shaking her head. Bess smiled and led her bestie toward their favorite shop. Calm down, girl. You need a cold shower, but let's just shop instead. Bess, it's not like that, Nancy said, trying to defend herself. As they walked along, Bess nudged Nance. I've seen a string bikini that would look so hot on you in Rue 21. You have to try it on so I can send you a new man pic later. Nancy blushed and turned away, trying to hide her face. Bess, shut up. Chapter 6, Time Warp. So do you have any idea where we are headed, Bess? Nancy asked as the two hailed a cab in Charleston to take them to their accommodations. The brochure they sent me is for the Battery Carriage House Inn, Bess replied after getting inside the vintage yellow cab. She dug through her large lace-trimmed crossbody bag hoping to find it. Yeah, here it is, Nance, have a look. She the teen while tossing the info packet to Nancy. This place is quite old. It dates back to the 1800s. And it states the house was battered during the siege of Charleston, at that time the longest bombardment of a civilian population in the history of warfare. After the war, wealth had disappeared from Charleston. Blacklock and other southern merchants and factors were broke. It is amazing that there was anyone at all to buy the property. The purchaser was a Southerner born in Georgetown, South Carolina, but also a Yankee colonel. Nancy read from the pamphlet. It listed much more information that was best just highlighted. So Civil War history, huh? Not really my thing. Have to admit it's better than just hanging around back home wasting our summer. Bess mused as she gazed out the window at the passing pictures of farmland. Looks like the place was renovated into a New York fashion of the time, known generally as Second Empire, Nancy said while flipping through the pages. The Pringles, who owned the home during the society's founding, converted the rear outbuilding into a motor court during the 20s and set up Burma shave-style signs on the major roads coming into Charleston. By the 1960s, the rooms at 20 South Battery were then converted into small apartments and rented to college students. By the 80s, it returned to a Charleston Historic District hotel and has been that way ever since. She turned to look up at Bess, who had fallen asleep from just listening. Sighing, the teen took off her light jacket to place over her best friend. With Bess out, Nancy pulled out her Canon EOS to take a few shots of the countryside before they reached the city itself. Nancy had never been here before and felt quite excited to have the chance to photograph it. "Miss, would you mind if I turn on some light listening?" asked the aged cabbie driver. "Sure, go ahead, just please not be loud, my friend has a bit of jet lag." She reread the pamphlet once more. The award-winning Battery Carriage House Inn is beloved for its romantic atmosphere and unique historic setting, she sighed, lost in thought. I wonder what it must have been like back in the day, she thought to herself. The city itself was unique with ancient cobblestone roads, a rich history, and many gardens. Nancy enjoyed the sights and sounds. Breathing deeply even revealed the tingle of salt in the air, a clear sign that the ocean was not far away. The cabbie dropped them off just outside a large pair of iron gates that led to an inner courtyard. Nice, Bess exclaimed as they passed through to enter. The small courtyard was overflowing with climbing roses and palms of different heights. In the very center stood a fine stone fountain that features 3 young cupids. It was framed on either side by 2 large potted ferns. Yeah, it's more than I expected. That is for sure. Nancy replied as she took the lead, ready to explore. Nancy was in deeper need of a good stretch after that long car ride. The in-white version shone bright white in the coastal sun. From a mast over the head, an American flag fluttered proudly. Once inside, the girls gravitated to the large desk. No one was in sight, so Bess eagerly, in a childlike manner, reached out and kept hitting the bell for assistance. That is until Nancy grabbed her arm to stop the imaging noise. Bess in response just shot her a playful look with her tongue stuck out. "How may I help you?" asked a man that seemed to jump out of nowhere. His sudden appearance made the girls jump, but no real harm was done. He seemed a bit off. From the man's tall lanky stature, vintage mutton chops, hollowed face, a formal suit, nothing seemed to be working in his favor. Bess pulled out her paperwork from her boho chic shoulder bag. "Yes, we won the Zag Mag contest and are here to collect our rooms." "I see. Are you quite sure, miss?" the man asked. "Why wouldn't she be?" Nancy butted in, not caring for the man's attitude. "Very well, then come with me. You will be staying in room 10, he half grumbled before helping the girls take their luggage up. Once there, he unlocked the door, however, he would not step foot in the room. Nancy tried to get him to bring in the luggage twice by gesturing to no avail. He simply just works, not do it. Good luck, girls, you will need it, he said before dashing off to presumably get back to work. What an oddball. We might need to keep an eye on him, you just never know what some freaks are up to, Bess commented as she threw her suitcases along the bed and started to unpack. Just one bed? It will do. Right, Bess? Nancy asked as she started to unpack her stuff, into a tall chest drawer with an old TV resting on top. Yeah, sure, wouldn't bother me in the slightest. Reminds me in a way of all the sleepovers we used to have way back when we were little, Bess replied as she skirted around the room to explore a little. This room was dark and painted in a calming shade of powder blue, with a grand four-poster bed with a dainty lace canopy for flair. On either side were small nightstands with matching glass lamps filled with seashells. Not much else was in the room beside a hope chest that rested at the end of the bed and a pair of straight-back sitting chairs covered in teal cashmere. Bess, what do you think of the place so far? Nancy questioned. There, however, was no response. Bess? Chapter 7 Strange Disappearances. Bess, where are you? Nancy asked before turning away from her duties. Nancy, I'm out here. You have to come to see this. The teen found Bess outside on a terrace, sitting on a wicker sofa. It was shaded here, felt homey with the wicker furniture set, and felt quite private. Isn't this nice? It feels so refreshing and calming here. Wish I could live here, Bess commented as she sipped on soda the girl had bought earlier that day. You are right. I will debate that, Nancy added before plopping down next to her friend. She took in a deep breath of fresh air, laid back, and closed her eyes. Bird songs could be heard all around them. Bess shifted in her seat and pulled out a cigarette, a habit she did not care to share with the public. She carefully lit the short marublo before taking a long rag off of it. Bess, give that up already. That is a gross and expensive habit, Nancy tried to argue. In response, Bess just blew smoke into her friend's face. Nancy coughed before getting up with a pissed-off look. She moved over to the side to take in the view. The sea breeze blew gently through the girl's red hair as she took in the sights. The city lay before basking in the bright coastal sunshine. A buggy pulled by a large Clydesdale horse could be seen nearby along with many other historic buildings. It was a strange sight in a way, to see a brand new car driving beside a horse and buggy. Nancy giggled a little. Charleston certainly did have a feel of its own. It's about time for a late lunch, right? Bess asked while blowing smoke rings into the air like some hippie chick. Yeah, but I would rather finish unpacking before we go out, she sighed before turning to head back in. I just hate to come back in tired, only to have to toss the junk onto the floor to get to bed. Bess got up to follow before grabbing Nancy's arm. Know where you want to go? Nancy took in a deep breath, a little surprised. Nah, not really. Maybe we can go off exploring or look something up. Bess nodded in agreement and went to go get her phone. A moment later, Bess cried out, Nancy, have you seen my phone? Not really. The last time I noticed was on the plane. I had it in my hand when we arrived. Oh my, what am I going to do? Bess said dramatically as a look of panic crossed her face. Nancy sighed before crossing the short distance between the two. With her hand reassuringly on the girl she said, just chill, girl. I'll call it. Nancy fished out her own phone. But no response, it went straight to voicemail. Can I look up its location on my Apple account? Bess asks, about to cry. Nancy tossed over the phone before laying across a bed to rest. They watched the ceiling fan spin and cast shadows while resting. The last known place was this room, but now it's not pinging. Then that means it is in here somewhere and can wait. My blood sugar is dropping, so we have to go eat soon. Nancy insisted while using her own phone to look someplace up. Moments later the two were dashing through the lobby on the way out. The city was bustling with life and cheer. Most of the population at this end of town were college students, so the girls felt like they belonged. The two teens skirted their way while following a map on Nancy's cell phone. The trails took many turns, sending the duo in circles. Chapter 8 Bliss. After stopping at a small mom and pop's place, called Jack's Comic Dogs, for lunch, the girls returned to their room to find it the same, well, mostly. "Nancy, there's my phone," Bess yelled as the two entered. It was laying on a small table right beside the door. "That was not there when we left, right? Tell me I'm not going crazy." "I don't think so." "Do you think the maid found it and put that there?" Nancy asked as she crossed the room to get her bottle of Bath and Body Works cream. "The sun has really dyed her fair skin out." "Perhaps, but the battery is full, with the sound on. We even tried to call it earlier, remember?" Bess said, wringing her hands and pacing back and forth. "It is nothing, just let it go. Don't stress out about every little thing," Nancy urged while rolling her blue eyes. They plopped down into the soft pillow-top mattress. "It felt like a cloud," Nancy sighed in bliss. "This is the life, every day should be like this one." The cable here was basic. The girls didn't care though. It was not long before Nancy fell asleep and Bess hopped into the bath. Bess took her time primping as usual. What else do you expect from a beauty queen? She cursed herself for not bringing some candles and was delighted to find her Vanilla Lush Sugar Body Scrub and Galaxy Bath Bomb. She carefully unwrapped it, before dropping it in. They created a surge of color and relaxed the strong fragrance of Victoria's Secret love spell that filled the small bathroom. She disrobed before lightly stepping into the steaming water. It burned at first, but slowly it became tolerable. She seeped in it like a couture loose-leaf tea. Bess closed her eyes and let herself go into a state of total relation. The lines between countless and sleep started to blur. Just when the blonde had nodded off, a loud crash spooked her. Across the small space, just a mere 5 feet away, a broken glass of hair product was spiraled across the tile floor. "That is strange. I was sure that I put the medicine cabinet when unpacking." A chill went down her spine. "That was nothing, right?" Chapter 9 Water. The girls left the ferry, to find themselves on the Isle of Palms. The sand tickles their toes as the two walked, while the scent of the fresh salty air drew them in like a moth to a flame. The beach in this area was packed with a throng of tourists all around. Nancy looks away as Bess starts taking off her clothes. Bess got a lot of whistles and cat calls as she peeled off her white Daisy Dukes and a cream-colored lace tank top to reveal a striking striped peach bikini. Nancy blushed as she looked down at her own form next to the curvy model like Bess. The shyly picked up her beach bag and searched for a changing tent. Once inside, she neatly folded up the discarded clothing, and then slipped into a white plain bikini that paired well with a boho lace cream cover-up. "If you would kindly remember our agreement," Nancy said while holding out her milky white-colored hand. Bess flashed her a witchy look before powering on her cell and handing it over to Nancy. They had agreed to disconnect from the net for a bit to better enjoy their trip while on the beach. The two took their time walking along the edge of the waves. Bess stopped to look out over the glistening water for a moment, then noticed Nancy was lost in the crowd. "What a pain," she exclaimed before turning to look for her best friend. Everywhere she turned it was packed. Finally, across the beach past the edge of the sea of people, Bess glimpsed her. "But how did she get that far so quickly?" she questioned before sighing loudly. "What a drag." She fought the crowds painstakingly until Nancy finally came into view. Her back was turned towards Bess as her long red hair flowed in the breeze. Bess ran forward and hugged the girl. "Excuse me, but you must have me confused with someone else." Bess took a step back to look at the mistaken stranger. She was a short girl standing at a mere 5 feet, with capturing jade green cat eyes, a cute heart-shaped face, and dark red long curly hair. "How could I have made such a mistake?" she whined. The girl pouted slightly and tapped her bare foot out of frustration, before noting that Bess was looking in thought. She waved her hand in front of Bess's face. "Hello, Earth to Blondie." "Hello." Bess shook her head and snapped out of it. "Sorry, I was just looking for my friend. I can't seem to find her anywhere," Bess said with her head hung low. The girl took a step forward. "Maybe I can help." "Did the friend say anything else that they wanted to was interested in doing today?" "No, we're just tourists flying by the seats of our pants." The new girl crossed her arms and said, "Not much to go on, but I have an idea." The redhead grabbed Bess's hand and pulled her towards the lifeguard's stand. "The lifeguard is a total buzzkill, but if I distract him long enough you can climb up onto his seat, to get a view of the whole area. And spot Nancy. Genius for sure, girl," Bess said while patting the girl on the back. Just as planned, the teen called the guy down, then started to talk him up with some flirting and wordplay. Bess ran up and climbed high onto the seat to look far and wide. After a moment of searching, she started to get down. Once the sand was back under her feet, she pulled the new girl aside. "She's not here. Do you think Nancy was kidnapped?" The teen shook her head. "No, there are too many people here. If someone was dumb enough to try to kidnap her, it would be foiled far too easily." The two girls sat down on a beach towel just outside the crowd. "I do have a hunch that is worth looking into." Chapter 10 Scarlet. "That's what are we waiting for, let's go check," Bess interrupted. The redhead whipped her head around before saying, "My thoughts exactly, follow me." The two eagerly bobbed and weaved through the masses of tourists. Oh, what fun! Nancy would have to pick a busy beach like this to visit, Bess thought. The girl checked behind her to make sure Bess was still behind. She was taking them towards some cliffs on the far side of the beach. Bess could see faint people risking their lives, jumping off into the waters below. A chill went down her spine. That was not for her. The more they walk, the more secluded it becomes. They were now on a part of the beach full of large sand dunes. It looked more like a desert. Bess tried her best to keep up with the light food girl. However, she took one false step, which caused her foot to sink through the sand and made her fall. "Bess, are you okay?" asked the new girl as she offered a hand up. Bess grasped it and was pulled up. "Guess I should have told you that this part of the beach is full of sea turtle nests. See, that's what you fell in." Bess stopped brushing off the dry sand and gave the girl a panicked look. "I didn't crush them, right?" The girl responded with a look of surprise. "Oh no, see, the shells are all empty," she said while holding one up for Bess to see. "So do you live around here or just on vacation as well?" Bess asked. The girl expressed a look of deep thought. "I'm a local. Lived here my whole life. If you want I can take you to some places off the grid around here. I promise." They promise that it won't be too crowded. "You know what they say, that there is no city on Earth quite like Charleston." "Oh, that would be fun, thanks." "So are you at the university here or what?" "Oh no, I'm only 16. But a lot of people mistake me for being older often." "I just hope that I don't look too much older," said the girl as she looked down at her feet. "Sorry, I didn't really mean it that way. I would just that you're 18, you just seem very mature, that's all." Bess replied sheepishly, trying to keep pace with the girl. Scarlet led the way, but from time to time would pause, lost in the moment. It felt kind of awkward, so Bess spoke up. "So do you come this way often?" "Well, I mean out to this aisle." Sometimes with my family. Today, however, I came for the sand castle contest. It ended not that long before you showed up." Other than that, this beach is usually very peaceful and serene, the girl replied. We need to turn back, she's not here, Bess whined. The redhead did not turn back and kept going. Frustrated, Bess ran up to grab her arm. Instead, the sand shifted under her feet, sending the two girls down on top of each other. They moaned as they fought to get untangled. Red hair was caught on Bess's necklace. The new girl whimpered whenever they tried to pull apart. Finally, Bess broke her own necklace off in an attempt to get unglued. The two sat side by side, as Bess fussed with the new girl's hair trying to help. Just then they heard a sound farther down on the beach. There was a girl fighting off seagulls. Chapter 11 Storming. They were flocking all around her and trying their best to scare the girl off. The teens ran forward just as the other girl got down on all fours and covered up her head. Bess gasped before calling out, Nancy, I'm coming. Hold on just a little longer. As they neared, the new girl swung at the birds with her beach bag as Bess batted at the gulls with her beach towel. Then, in a moment of pure genius, the new girl pulls out her cell phone and cranks Fall Out Boy at max volume, causing all the gulls to take flight. Nancy slowly sat up. Nancy, are you okay? Bess asked. Yeah, I will be, but check this out. From underneath, Nancy has been laying baby sea turtles breaking through the warm beach sand. I got lost wandering around earlier, and just so happened to find these little guys being attacked by the birds and raccoons. Thank God the raccoon were more scared of me than I was of them. Nancy said with a weak smile. Very gently she scooped up a few sea turtles and carried them knee-deep into the cool ocean waves. Perhaps this will give them more of a chance. I'm really sorry to be a bummer, but here in South Carolina, sea turtles are endangered. By law, we are not supposed to even touch them, said the new girl as she stepped forward. Well, I'm sorry, but we didn't fight off all those critters for nothing, answered Bess as she collected a few in her towel. I don't see anyone else around. Trust me, it will hurt nothing. The new girl looked both ways before coming forward. Oh, all right, but let's make it quick. As they hurried into the surf with their arms full, Nancy got a good look at the new face. She was very pretty. This sent a small bolt of jealousy through Nancy when she soon pushed out. Hi, I'm Nancy, she said in an attempt to be friendly. Scarlet Swift, nice to meet ya, said the fiery redhead. They continued working for a little while before a ping of recognition came to Scarlet. Wait, I have seen you before, but I can't place it. Oh, Nancy. Why has she been in the news quite a few times? Bess said as she tried to brush it off lightly. The girl looked lost in thought for a moment before responding, Don't tell me you're that teen detective. Nancy blushed and shook her head yes. Wow, I have looked up to you for a while. I'm so glad to finally meet the famous Nancy Drew. By the way, how many cases have you solved over the years? Asked the girl. Maybe a few hundred, replied Nancy. Scarlet's jaw just dropped in response. If you don't mind me asking, which case was the most memorable? Scarlet asked as her cat-like eyes light up. Unbeknownst to them, while they were saving the sea turtles, a dark cloud had started to come up from over the waves. The haunted house case with the ghost bride, Nancy replied thoughtfully. Seriality, it had to be fake, right? It's not like a ghost is real. Oh, believe me, they are real but rare too. Nancy tried to reply just as a crash of lightning and thunder sounded. The girls half jumped out of their skins, before taking off and running towards the ferry dock for shelter. Scarlet once again led the way. The rain began to come light at first, but by the time they reached the dock, it was coming down in sheets. The dock was covered with many benches, however, with the heavy rain, it was packed to the rafters right now with tourists. Bess pushed her way into the crowd, not willing to wait, trying to get away from the lighting. The other girls followed until Scarlet pulled the group into a small space under the stairs. It was dry at least with no people pushing. There the shivering teens huddled together to keep warm. You could hear the waves picking up from the winds. They pounded the pier almost in a rhythm that shook the people. Scarlett checked her phone. The service was greatly impaired with little to no signal. This is really bad. How are we going to get out of this mess? Nancy, refusing to give in to the fear, started to talk about their life back home. They chatted about so much in such a small time before the teen knew it, the ferry was in sight. It was just a speck on the ocean to those with a view, but its foghorn brought hope. Thank God they came back early, Nancy exclaimed as they still huddled together. Unwilling to get crushed in the panic-stricken mob, they waited until most of the people were already on board to slip inside. The ferry that normally carried the majority of the passengers on deck was filled to capacity. The teens found an open spot next to the windows. Though it was not the best place to be, at least they had room to breathe. A member was going around giving out watered-down hot cocoa and cookies. Bess watched the kids' faces light up as they ate the sweets. To her, just the sight of the food was enough to send her running for the restroom. She was already feeling very seasick. She is going to be a while. That's a long wait, Nancy added while turning her head to watch the thrashing waves. The feeling of being rocked only seemed to soothe Scarlett, as the teen fought to stay awake. It's a good thing I don't see any other ships out there. They must have made it back to port, Nancy assumed before turning to Scarlett, who lay fast asleep, propped up against the wall. What great company you are, added Nancy sarcastically. Nothing new was happening over the water when Nancy returned her gaze. After a while, the boat movement and the sounds of the storm started to take effect on her, and she too began to struggle to stay watchful. Just as her eyelids started to feel heavy once more, something strange caught her attention, from the other side of the glass. There, out near the cliffs, was a woman hanging on for dear life. This shook Nancy from her daze, getting the teen excited. Nancy banged on the window begging for someone to help the victim. This is where it really took a turn for the worse. Her yelling somehow caught the girl's attention. She turned to look straight at Nancy from 50 feet away. Nancy's blood ran cold as she stared back. The girl reached out a frail arm towards the boat before beginning to give off a faint glow. Nancy swore the girl looked as if she was fading out of existence before disappearing beneath the ocean's foamy torment. Chapter 12. Exhausted. The girls arrived outside the inn late that night. After the ferry had docked in Charleston, it took a few hours to get back here. Unfortunately, the cabs would pick up anyone until after the worst of the storm had passed. After waiting for 2 hours, Scarlett's mother was able to pick them all up in an old candy apple red Ford Thunderbird. It was a little rusted, with some deep scratches, however, it still oozed style. The heat didn't work in the car, and Mrs. Swift insisted on driving real slow, like the elderly, due to slippery road conditions. Once back at the inn's entrance, it looked dark, with most of the lights out. Bess tried the door knob. As to be expected, it was locked. Well, it is way past the closing time, she admitted, pointing to the sign on the door. How are we going to get in? Nancy questioned, rubbing her tired eyes. Bess just scrubbed in reply, with no clue. After a moment-long dragged-out moment, Nancy asked, Hey, do you happen to have a hairpin? Bess smiled smugly as she pulled one from her blonde locks, knowing full well what her friend had in mind. They went around the back of the building. Luckily there was a side door service entrance, half hidden behind some overgrown foliage. The teens creep up and slid through the greenery, getting even more soaked from the wet leaves. At least it is just drizzling, Bess whimpered. Nancy raised one questioning brow before sighing and turning back to the door. Look, there is no deadbolt, this is gonna be easy, Nancy said, taking the pin in hand. She worked with it as it began to pour down once more. Oh Lord, she exclaimed just before unlocking the door. You're a boss, Bess complimented before giving a double thumbs up. Nancy grabbed hold of her and gestured for them to remain quiet. Bess held her breath as she watched Nancy trying to jar the door loose. The frame had warped over time. They opened the door slowly, careful not to attract attention. Inside it was almost pitch black, only the shapes of the furniture were visible in the low light. They locked the door back before starting to walk lightly across the room, hitting their toes quite a few times as they went. Bess was cursing under her breath once they reached the stairway. Once upstairs they relaxed, feeling free to move about. The teen was overjoyed to see their own room. Nancy went to the restroom to run a steaming hot bath. Bess was happy to take a fluffy towel to her hair as she looked for some PJs. Once she had slipped into some loose pink sweatpants and a plain light gray tee. Bess jumped onto the soft bed. She sighed contentedly. Nancy was just the opposite. She took her time warming up in the bath. She dumped some bubble bath in there and let it fill up to just under the brim. After dimming the light, she slid into the tub, rested her head on a small rolled-up towel, and put a hot rag over her eyes. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, she saw Bess asleep curled up under the covers like a tiny kitten. She pulled out her phone and stored a picture while snickering. Nancy then found a long vintage tee to change into before getting into bed herself. She rolled over onto her stomach, then just laid there and listened to the pain pouring down before drifting off. Chapter 13 Uninvited Guest. "Ladies, are you okay in there?" yelled a man as he banged at the hotel room door. The girls shoot up at the scare, holding each other wide-eyed. "Who is it?" Nancy asked in half-in zombie mode. "Hotel staff, ma'am," was the simple reply. Bess started to get up, before calling out, "Hold on a second, I'll be right there." Where her feet hit the floor they were unsteady. The girl held on to the wall for balance, as she made her way. She gave Nancy a quick glance before opening the door partway, not willing to grant entry. "Excuse me, miss, are you okay? Anything amiss?" asked a man with a round face and graying hair. He looked to be about Bess's height. Bess opened the door just a bit more. "Why, yes, we are just fine. But why do you need to know? Is something wrong?" The man fiddled with his glasses and took a small step backward before clearing his throat. "You see, miss, there was a break-in last night." Bess's eyes went wide and her mouth dried. "Was there a robbery?" "Strangely enough, it doesn't appear to be. All of the inn's assets seem to still be in place. We are just checking with the guests to be sure." Bess shifted her weight to the right side. She bore a picked-off look, still upset from being awoken so early. "So what did they want then?" "I was hoping to find out soon, miss. All we really know is that 3 people broke through a small side door last night to gain entry," replied the man in a calm tone. "What evidence is there?" "The police were only able to find 3 pairs of wet shoe prints that lead up near the lobby desk," answered the man. "Well, if that is all, we have to get dressed," Bess said while closing the door, without giving the man a chance to linger. Nancy sat on the bed looking as pale as a ghost. "I think we need to get dressed and go have a look." Bess just sighed in reply before heading into the bathroom. Half an hour later, she came out dressed in a pair of cream lace shorts, a dark blue loose tank top, and badge sandals. When it was Nancy's turn to dress, she chose a dusty pink skirt, stock white ruffled tank, and a matching pair of slip-on lace-covered flats. Without wasting time, the two left their room and headed down to the lobby. The police were still there taking pictures. They had half the room taped off from guests. They got closer before Nancy paled. Right there was the very same door they had come in last night. However, it was in splinters. "Nancy, are you thinking what I am?" Bess said, shaking. "That we were followed in last night?" Nancy asked. Bess shook her head yes. "It has to be, no one has used that door in a long time, and besides that, it was hidden by the greenery. It would not have been visible later that night due to the darkness. Someone had to see use this door, then did the same some time afterward," Nancy concluded. Chapter 14 Not Alone. I don't like this, Nancy, Bess mumbled as they snuck out the front door. Nancy's eyes narrowed just before whipping her head in Bess's direction. It can't be helped, we have no proof that we were followed. Well, not any that will not get us in trouble. She hung her head low and let her red hair hide her eyes. We just have to be more careful and watch our backs. Bess sighed before pulling out a cigarette. Once outside she lit up, inhaling quick shallow puffs. Today was clear, the sun shone bright and warmed their pale skin, with just a few sparse clouds floating here and there. It looked to be a far better day. Looks can be deceiving though. The girls walked along the outer wall of the inn. Here in the shade, with a gentle breeze, it felt heavenly. The teen took their time as they walked. Bess held her phone in hand, following directions she found online. As the girls took a corner, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee tickled their senses. They soon found themselves just outside of a place called the Black Tap Coffee. Inside the place was very sleek and modern. Everything was a shade of white except for the wood grain tabletops and counter. Houseplants could be found all over the room, giving it a homey feeling. The line was not that long, so Bess offered to order and let Nancy sit down and rest. Nancy sat down at a small side table next to the large storefront window. She pulled out her phone, eager to check it. No new calls were shown. Switching to Facebook, Nancy found a few messages from back home. It was mostly just the charities trying to get her to volunteer or donate money again. Just then her phone began to buzz. Okay, I hope you are going to like this. It is the most popular item they sell. Bess said, coming up from behind carrying a bag and 2 coffees. This shook Nancy back to her senses. Why did you ask? Bess lightly blushed. Well, of course, how else would we know what to order? And Mark was very helpful. Bess said before turning to mouth a thank you to a cute dark-haired guy at the counter. Nancy eyed the man for a moment. He seemed to fit Bess's type, tall, muscled, with cute dimples. Bess has all the luck with guys, Nancy thought. She had the feeling they would be seeing a lot of this place on this trip. Winky face. Nancy took a sip of the coffee. It was very good, with a flavor she could not place. What is this? Bess gave her a thoughtful look. Oh, just a little something they call the honey latte. Good, right? Nancy nodded in response as Bess pulled out 2 large blueberry muffins from the paper bag. They ate theirs silently, taking in the atmosphere of the place. Nancy really enjoyed just chilling with her best friend in this cozy little place that held such charm. She sighed deeply, closing her eyes to savor the flavor of her coffee. Oh shit! Bess exclaimed, causing Nancy to look up. Her poor friend had somehow spilled the coffee all over herself. Nancy just shook her head. Let's head back to the room. I'm sure things have died down by now. Bess was near tear but nodded in agreement as they got up to leave. The girls walked in to find that Nancy's prediction had been right. By now the door had been boarded up and the mess cleaned up. Thankfully there seemed only to be the staff and guests in the lobby. They climbed the stairs 2 at a time, eager to get back out and have an adventure. Bess fumbled with the key, finding it hard to use. Come on, is this rusted? What a piece of junk, she whined. Nancy stepped forward and swiped the key. For her, it gave little trouble. The lock just needs to be oiled. It does look to be old, said, trying not to seem full of herself. The door slid open partly but seemed to be blocked by something. What in the world? Nancy asked, bewildered. It took both girls pushing with all their might to pry it open fully. Nancy stepped in timidly, trying to figure out what had happened. She checked behind the door but there was nothing that should have blocked it. Curious, she tried closing and opening it again. However, this time it worked perfectly. Bess watched as her friend tested the door. That is very strange, she said while raising one pencil-thin eyebrow. Bess could see the gear grinding in Nancy's head as she stood there lost in thought. Do you smell that faint scent? Nancy pointed out as they walked deeper into the room. Bess sniffed the air. Now that you mention it, yes. It is kinda musky and reminds me of an old lady's perfume. Exactly, it makes me thank for my own grandmother. Nancy mused as she let her eye linger on the room's door. The teen just could not shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Just then a powerful thought hit Nancy. In response, she put her hand over Bess's mouth. I don't think we are alone in here. We need to get out. Bess didn't wait for another minute before dashing from the room and dragging Nancy along for the ride. Chapter 15 Distressed. Someone please help, Bess screamed as they reached the front desk. With no one to be seen, they hit the bell a few times, desperate to talk to any member of the hotel staff. Footsteps could be heard just before an unknown old man stepped out from one of the back rooms. This man appeared to be in his late 60s, with thinning hair, white, caterpillar-like gray brows, hollow cheeks, and deep-set eyes with dark circles. He wore high-end old-fashioned attire complete with a black silk bow tie. The man stood there silent, staring blankly at the two frantic teens. Before Nancy could speak, Bess stepped forward. I demand a new room, right now, she insisted, pointing a finger at the man. The man blinked but did not show any real reaction. I'm afraid that is quite impossible, he replied almost under his breath. Oh no, you are not giving up that crap. I will get a new room, Bess raved, refusing to go back into their room again. Nancy sighed deeply as she stood next to her friend. This is not the way to get any help. The redhead shook her head in frustration, knowing full well what would happen next if she did not shut her friend up. The man cleared his throat before replying, I have no other rooms available, all are booked for a fishing competition coming up this weekend at the pier. Anyone could see this was not getting anywhere. Excuse me, could I have a word with you in the office in private? Nancy asked, trying to keep Bess out of this. The girl's temper had done enough damage. Again in a cold tone, the man replied, that is not necessary, miss. Nancy looked the man straight in the eye. Then perhaps you can help in some other way. I hate to have to inform you about this, but we just found someone hiding in our room. What do you mean? Did you even bother to call the police? The man asked, not showing any concern. Well, we didn't see them exactly. The lock on our door would not work when we tried it, so we had to fight with it to get into our room. Then we found the door locked. By the time we made it into the room, no one was in sight, but there was this very strong perfume in the air. We just know someone was in there, Bess added, with Nancy giving her a dirty look. Why would she not just let Nancy handle this? So let me get this right, you are unhappy with your room, then ever so conveniently when you find out there are not any more rooms available, this comes up about a break-in, he argued in a tone that made the girls feel like little children. No, that is a lie, Nancy remarked, her anger flaring. I will not be having this. I suggest you two head back to your room before I have you forcefully removed from the building, the man replied, his temper also beginning to show. There is no need for that. Nancy spat as she turned to go. Hold on, Nancy, Bess said as she grabbed her friend's arm. Look here, mister, I want to talk to the manager, she said smugly. You have been, and I am also the owner, he said before gesturing for them to leave. Defeated, the girls left to talk things over somewhere else. The two teens wandered aimlessly around the narrow cobblestone streets and busy tourist areas until they found themselves in a different part of the city they had never been to before. The area was peaceful and quiet except for the roar of the waves. Off in the distance, the large harbor could be seen along with the Ravenel Bridge. The structure had two stunning diamond-shaped towers where the cables attached supported the gigantic bridge. Wow, look at that, exclaimed Nancy as she stared in awe. That must be beautiful at night. I hope to get a picture before we head home. Bess scoffed and turned to view the many boats in the water instead. Well, I would much rather go for a ride on one of those fine sailboats myself. The girls lost themselves for a moment, letting their minds wander. Suddenly Nancy spoke, let's at least try to call some places to stay so that we can find out for ourselves. Bess wore a look of surprise. I like the way your mind works. Why just take some jerk word for it? There must be somewhere else to stay, there is just something not right with that inn. I am missing something, right? Nancy asked while cocking an eyebrow. Bess tilted her head up to look up at the peaceful sky. Well, I just get the feeling there is something they are not telling us. Nancy looked down at the phone in her hand. You might be right, I'll do some research later. And I will call around looking for a place to stay. Nancy nodded. You call all the inns and bed and breakfast places, so I can get the hotels and motels. Get it, I will get right on it. Somewhere had to have at least one room empty. Chapter 16 Pranksters. I cannot believe that guy was right, Bess exclaimed as hung her head down. Nancy places a hand on Bess's shoulder to comfort her. It was worth a try. To quote my father, it is best to find out thing for yourself. It is never a waste of time. Do you think we can stay with Scarlett? No, we do not really know her. It would also be rude to ask. Nancy sighed, feeling depressed. This is a nice place. It is clean, relaxing, and beautiful. Bess said, trying to cheer up her friend. Nancy did not reply as she continued to gaze out over the tides and take in the salty sea air. Bess gave her best friend a questioning look before digging out her smartphone, eager to document this moment. She unlocked the device, opened her Pixel camera app, and switched to the rear-facing lens. The girl busied herself taking photos from many angles that the teen had learned back in the high school photography class a few years ago. She tired the worm's eye view, bird's eye, and normal center set before Bess started to photo boom her pictures. Hey, cut it out, she growled as a young boy shook his rear in front of the statue Bess wanted a picture of. Do not be such a baby. Nancy teased as she made a duck face at her friend. Nancy facepalmed as Bess continued to run around chasing the bratty child. Why me? Nancy whispered as she held her head low in shame. Tired of dealing with this scene, she went over to a nearby bench to sit in the shade and look through the new pictures they had just taken. As she unlocked her phone again, she noticed a new text message. It was from Scarlett. Hey, want to hang out today? I have a few ideas. Nancy thought for a moment before texting back, sure, but can it be tomorrow? I have a few issues to work out first. Then the teens started editing the photos and posting them online. Looking up from time to time, Nancy saw that Bess was also playing around making a YouTube video for her vlog, Blonde and Fabulous. The teens were engrossed with their devices that they failed to notice two more mischievous boys come up in their swimming trunks to play in the cool fountain water. The pair looked to be around 12 years old with evil grins on their faces. The boys started to splash water all on the unexpecting girls, causing them to scream and panic. Nancy fumed with anger to the point where you could almost see steam rising from her head. Her phone was socked with a frozen screen. These boys would pay, she would make sure of it. In a blind rage, she grabbed a fallen palm branch and started crashing the boys as they screamed with glee. She ran after them hot on their trail until the boys split up. She chose to follow the smaller child as she hit him a few times with the greenery. Bess, on the other hand, still had her phone working and was recording the whole thing. This was going to be a hit and make her so much money, the teen could not resist posting it. She sat there laughing at her friend, however, was soon involved as well when the other boy ran up and snatched her purse. Bess was very ticked off and was sure this would not end well. Half an hour later, all four was spread out across the grass, excused and breathing hard. Far too tired get back on their feet. The teens found that the boys had fallen asleep soon after. Creeping forward on hands and knees, Bess crept up to grab her bag. When she did, the girl had a devilish idea. Digging through her bag, Bess pulled out a black marker which she used to draw on the little boys' faces as Nancy the whole thing. The two teens could hardly keep from bursting out laughing as they snuck off. Girls rule, they cheered as the teens ran away. To be continued in the new book.